We all have moments that we wonder what would have happened if I did something different? What if I went left instead of right? What if I didn't cut Gracie's hair and instead let my friends tease me about liking a girl? Sometimes I wonder what could have happened to me if Gracie had told my mom and dad that I should remain as a girl. What if that moment that I was given to apologize to Grace and tell her that I was wrong happened differently? Hello, welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this special presentation of Punishment Alternative Ending by Olivia Julius. Chapter 30 New School Punishment. I walked into Mrs. Yolkman's room and sat down in my assigned seat. I was one of the first kids in the classroom. I sat down in my assigned seat and looked around for Eric Alex. Both were not at their desk yet. I wondered if Dad had given them more than one day of out-of-school suspension. I had wanted to ask him yesterday, but I wasn't sure how to ask. Dad usually didn't like to talk about how he disciplines other students. Gracie walked into the classroom a little after me. I watched as she put her book bag under her desk. She then looked at me and came over to me. I honestly didn't think that Mr. Trinton was going to make you wear the girls' uniform after yesterday's events with Eric and Alex, Gracie said. I looked back at the two chairs Alex and Eric sat in inside. No, I said, and I bet their punishment won't be as severe as mine was too. Maybe, Gracie said, sitting in the seat next to me. But now your dad knows that this is a good punishment for boys. So maybe he will try it again. I doubt it, I said, even though I couldn't help but think about Alex and Eric in the same uniform that I must wear. Gracie was about to say something else, but then students started to come into the classroom. Gracie looked back at the door and then at me. Maybe it is something to just be hopeful for, Gracie said before returning to her seat. Slowly the classroom filled up. No one seemed to notice me or look at me. Apparently, a boy wearing a girl's jumper is old news to them. Mrs. Yolkman walked in and got to her seat. I looked around for both Eric and Alex, but they were not sitting in their seat. I sat back in my seat, thankful that I didn't have to deal with them today. "Good morning, boy and girls," Mrs. Yolkman said, like she always says when she enters the classroom at the start of the day. "Good morning, Mrs. Yolkman," we all replied. The morning seemed to be proceeding like normal. Mrs. Yolkman had us bring our homework to the front. We did as we were told and then sat back down at our desk ready for Mrs. Yolkman's lesson. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. We all looked at the door as Mrs. Yolkman walked over and opened it. My dad appeared in the doorway, and for a second I thought he was going to ask for me. Instead, he came into the room and motioned for Eric and Alex to come in too. There was some gasp in the classroom as Eric and Alex both came in wearing the girls' uniform. The same uniform that I was wearing. The only difference was that both Eric and Alex both had buzz cuts, so they stood out more boyish than I have. The only other difference is that Eric was wearing white tights, the same white tights that most girls wore when it was cold outside. Other than that, both Amy and Eric were wearing a girl's red polo, the black jumper uniform, and Mary Jane's. I looked over to Gracie and she looked back over to me and smiled a little, acknowledging that I knew that she was right. "Listen up," Dad said in his most commanding voice. "This is Erica and Amy, please treat them with respect. Yesterday they did something to one of you that was wrong." I sank down a little in my seat with the mention of the events of yesterday. "Let me make this clear. If anyone is caught picking on or harassing other students, then I will give out strict punishments like this." He motioned to both Erica and Amy, who both looked like they were going to be sick. Both looked like they were not sure about how to wear the jumper or any dress. I silently thanked my parents for giving me a whole Easter break to get used to wearing girls' clothes. Both Erica and Amy nodded and walked back to their seats. Unlike me, they got to keep their original seats. Dad watched as the two sat down and then nodded in Mrs. Yolkman before he left the classroom. Once we were released to go to recess, I walked outside and waited for Erica and Amy to walk outside, but instead Bethany took my hand and pulled me over to the same park bench that we were at yesterday. There Gracie and Bailey waited for us. "I told you that your dad would make them wear girls' uniforms," Gracie said when I got close. "Yeah," I said, looking back to see the two now walking awkwardly to the picnic table. "Were you like that when you first wore a dress?" Bailey asked. "Kind of," I said, "I'm just glad that I was at my house the first time. I wonder how long they will be wearing the jumper for," Bethany said before sitting down on the park bench. I excused myself and walked over to the picnic table. It is hard to believe that just a few days ago I was sitting right here talking to both Alex and Eric just like normal. It's almost scary what a week can do. "Hey!" I said once I got close enough. Both Erica and Amy looked up at me. It was only now that I could see that both had purple polish on their fingernails, and both had on necklaces with their new names on them. "Hey!" Amy said sheepishly. "Look, we're sorry for what we did yesterday." "It's nothing," I said, even though I didn't want to forgive them. I still felt violated by what they had done. "So how long do you have to wear your uniform?" Erica asked. I looked down at the jumper and then back at the two. "Until the end of the school year," I replied. "You?" "Till the end of the week," Amy said. "Lucky," I whispered before sitting down next to them. It took a few minutes of awkwardly making small talk before all three of us could relax and talk about something other than wearing girls' uniforms. Eventually Gracie, Bailey and Bethany came over and sat with us. To the casual observer we just looked like a group of girls talking to each other. A week ago, we were 3 boys, Alex, Eric, and Adam, and 3 girls, Gracie, Bethany and Bailey. Now we are all girls. Amy, Erica, Amanda, Gracie, Bethany, and Bailey. It's just amazed me that this whole thing started with one stupid bet and a forced haircut. Is it weird that friends can be made during a punishment? Is it also weird that friendships can be made stronger during a punishment?